Hi everyone, welcome to LiftoffPM. In this video, we're going to dive into how product managers can apply generative AI to their work. So I'm Kevin Wei, I'm a principal product manager, and I'm really excited to have Shirag. Shirag is a PM at a large fintech company, and he's going to dive into this video with us as a guest on this video. Shirag, do you want to give a quick intro?
Sure. First of all, thanks, Kevin, for having me here. I work as a lead AI product manager, and I worked across fintech, SaaS products, retail banking domains. I have been a hands-on data scientist turned AI strategy consultant and turned into product management. So that's pretty much about me.
Awesome. And now, before we get into this video, I also want to share that this channel, Liftoff PM, is all about helping you land your dream PM role. We've got free lessons to get you started, like our videos on how to answer metrics questions, how to answer trade offs questions. And if you're enjoying our free videos and you're serious about acing your interviews, you got to level up. And that's where our paid course comes in. You can check it out by clicking the join button below. It's got everything you need to ace your interviews, from product sense to execution to strategy, and even those tricky behavioral questions. I'm a PM interview coach who has helped over 90 candidates land their dream PM role, and the strategies and lessons shared in the paid course is the same as those shared in paid private sessions. People will pay $1,000 or $2,000 to book the number of private coaching sessions that give them these lessons. And with our course, we share with you all of that same knowledge for less than the price you'd otherwise pay for one coaching session. That's a pretty good deal. And we just added to our expert tier 11 brand new videos specifically for behavioral interviews. They're packed with real life answers and examples to inspire how you respond to behavioral questions. And these examples are good for any behavioral round. Now, let's get into this video with Shirag on how generative AI can be applied to fintech products. Shirag, what's the first point that you would like to share?
Sure. Yeah. So I'll divide this session into three different topics, the main contents. The first thing is probably let's start with a few definitions that every AI PM should be aware about. Uh, there are two things that I'd like to cover in this first point. One is what is blank screen syndrome, and then what is financial anxiety. So blank screen syndrome occurs to us, most of us. For example, let's say whenever you open a chatbot, or let's say if any product is driven by a user text input, then you just see one text input on your screen. And that is what kicks in the blank screen syndrome. For example, I have a transaction for which I need an urgent answer. Let's say the transaction has failed and I need to know where my money is. Uh, and the company that I'm reaching out to has put up a support chatbot. So if I just see the chatbot and it's a text input screen, then the syndrome will kick in where I'll try to give the best of the input to get the answer faster because I have a pressing need. And that's where people start thinking of what is the best prompt that I will provide. And they just go rounds and rounds into what should I do in this case. So that is what we usually call as blank screen syndrome. Financial anxiety is exactly what I mentioned in the example. So let's say there is a transaction, there is monetary, uh, there is money involved here, and that's where people will want the answers much more quicker and in much more efficient way. So and with the AI products, a lot of things are moving into user input. So now that LLMs have come in, text-based or audio-based inputs are what is driving a lot of products. So that's where it is best for AI PMs to know about these techniques, these issues, and there are a couple of techniques that we can use to resolve these things. The first one to avoid a blank screen syndrome would be something called as intent classification. What that means is, let's say I have a huge training data on which I'm creating this user-driven product. Let's take an example of a chatbot itself, right? So when the training data is so huge, probably it is important to understand why will a person come to this chatbot? What would be the intent of that user? In order to uncover this intent, there are certain algorithms. Probably that is the next topic that I'll delve deeper into, and these things AI product managers should know. But I need to know the themes across the entire document. Let's say if it's 1,000 pager document on which I'm creating a user-driven, input-driven product, then what are the different key themes, and that becomes my intent, right? And then the next thing is, even once I know the intent, then how I'm creating a guided flow for the user so that they do not just see a text box input on the screen. So that guided flow will come in based on what kind of intent I have classified in the first step itself. So let's say there are four or five key themes, right? An APM should think in a way that, okay, now these themes are what I can just put in directly in the form of a button along with the chatbot. So you click on that button. Now the backend LLM knows that this user has come with, let's say, a transactional query intent, and it automatically becomes very important, right? So that is how you design these guided flows. So to resolve blank screen syndrome or to resolve financial anxiety, first you need to understand what are the intents. You need to classify the intents, and second, you create a guided design.
And are there any trade-offs to like showing too many like buttons or like just allowing the users to have their own input? Because I think a lot of people are, especially with like Chat GPT and Perplexity and similar products with AI, um, it's kind of the norm now to just have a blank screen for the user to input like some kind of natural language prompt.
Yeah, that's true. So, ChatGPT and the other LLMs that provide this capability are AI platforms where you can go and build your own products. But when there is an end AI product and customer AI product where there is just the interaction that happens, that is when classifying the intent becomes important, right? So you're not building anything. The user will not come with an intent to build their own capabilities on top of it. So that's where a blank screen in ChatGPT still works. But in this case, you of course do not have to have a lot of different buttons for sure. If there are 20 different intents that you have to consolidate that, probably you have to think about multiple different chatbots or screens. But your point is valid. You should not show a lot of things on one screen itself. Allow the user, guide the user into different screens so that within 2 or 3 clicks, you are able to exactly identify why they have come to your product.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction to make, and it's all about helping resolve the user pain of like I'm terrified to open my banking app, like I don't know how to navigate it, or just like a lot of the anxiety that people feel. So definitely agree that this is something that needs to be addressed. What's the
Absolutely.
next lesson that you think is here for AI PMs in fintech?
Yeah, and for this topic, I get a lot of queries from a fellow PM community that to become an AI PM, should we know about the algorithms? Uh, the answer to that is yes. You should be knowing about most of the ML algorithms or AI algorithms that exist, but there's no list of algorithms that you should know, right? It's about this. The identifying the algorithm should come inherently to you, and for that you should have worked into that domain for a couple of years so that you gain that natural advantage, and you know about what kind of mathematics should I use when I'm building this kind of a product. I'm sorry, there's a light cut.
No worries, go ahead.
Yeah, so I get a lot of queries from my fellow PMs about should we know algorithms, the ML or AI algorithms? And the answer to that is yes, you should be knowing the algorithms, but it's not like there is a set list of algorithms that you should be thorough of. This should come naturally or inherently to you, and for that, you should have worked into that domain for some time. Like, you should be hands on. So, for example, if we go back to the intent classification example, right? And that is important because a lot of AIs are driven by user input. So you need to know intent in a lot of cases. Now there are algorithms like topic modeling, for example, which works on LDA gives in the backend. So an AI product manager specifically should know about what kind of algorithm will help me classify the intent. So let's say topic modeling is probably one of the algorithms which it's pre-LLM era. So we used to use that a lot earlier. It will divide your textual data into different themes or buckets based on what are the most important keywords that are coming in. So that is a natural or that's a algorithmic way to understand the different themes or intents, right? Once you do that, and there are a lot of hyperparameters that you have to keep tuning to reach out to the best intents or themes across your document or your training data. So if you know that algorithm, as a product manager, probably you'll take help from LLMs to run that algorithm. You look at the output, and then you are driven, or you will start ideas will start flowing to you in order to build your product in that way. So that is why it is important to know the algorithms. Even if I don't know topic modeling, right? I should be knowing about, let's say, clustering algorithms. And clustering works for numeric data. So I should naturally think of how do I cluster the textual data. And that is where I'll go back and search, and then I'll get to the intents classification. So that's where it becomes important to know the algorithms.
Are there any metrics or success criteria you would look at when you're evaluating different models?
it depends on the kind of model that you're using, Kevin. So every model will have a different success criteria. But I would say for a product manager, the model success criteria is not that important as much as the product's success criteria. So the product's KPIs would be different. My user adoption, the kind of queries that I'm getting, whether I'm answering that correctly or not, those become important rather than what how accurate the topic modeling is, or probably the ML algorithm that I have run, what is the RMSCs and all those metrics that usually come in with predictive models. So that does not become that much important because the developers or the engineers will be taking up building the model itself. But the ideation is where the AI product manager should be knowing about these algorithms.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool. Okay. And what was your third point that on how AI PMs can apply generative AI in fintech?
Yeah, again, this is for fintech, it becomes especially important. There is something called as prompt injection. So I'll tell you an example. What happens is, let's say you're building again a chatbot which is crawling a few websites and using that as a training data. On the website, from a human's perspective, you'll not be able to read certain prompts that are that exist in the backend because they might be in the same color as the background. So you'll miss to read it. But let's say the chatbot has crawled the website. The prompt is now a part of the training data. So we can imagine what kind of security risk it possesses. So the third topic that I would like to cover here is input sanitization, which means that uh, once the user reaches out to you with a query, once the intent and everything is identified, it becomes important that still you will sanitize the input that the user is providing to your LLM or to your chatbot. So the best idea or the best solution to mitigate the fraud cases or malicious use cases is you, let's say, put up an agent in between the user query and your LLM. So before the query hits your backend LLM, it will go through an agent. And then designing the agent itself is something that depends on what kind of use case you have. So there are two ways usually to design your AI agents. And again, this is something that an AI PM should be knowing. You have vertical agents, which work specifically into one of the business problems, and they're specialized agents. And then we have horizontal agents, which are kind of generic AI agents, right? So in this case, probably a horizontal or a generic agent would work best because its job is to take in the user query, identify whether it matches with the intent or not, and then pass it on to that specific part of your training data. So that's why this is a horizontal generic AI agent design, and it does the job of sanitizing the input and then reducing any kind of fraudulent or malicious activities that probably could occur. Because the thing is, there are a lot of set of guardrails that you can do, but people are becoming creative. There are a lot of examples that we see. People are using chatbots for generating their Python scripts, even though it's a support chatbot. Or let's say there was one example where it was one for one of the car manufacturers. The support chatbot was tricked into selling an SUV for $1 instead of the $70,000 cost. So these things happen. People are creative, but guardrails can help you only to certain extent. And then sanitizing the input is also one of the key parameters of building user input driven data products.
Yeah, it's like very similar to SQL injection. It's where you just need to make sure there's like clear separation between like the machine instruction and the data input because when there isn't that clear separation, people will exploit that and
Yeah.
for their own gain, especially for fintech products. Chirag, I want to also ask you as a final question, what are some applications of generative AI that you've seen in fintech? Like some that come to my mind could be with customer support, right? People trying to get help. Perhaps there's like some applications of generative AI there, maybe even financial guidance if people need to set up like certain accounts and maybe there's some generative AI there that can give some guidance to people. Of course, people need to understand that, hey, when you're like trying to do some maybe investments, there's some risk there. But yeah, curious, in your experience, what kinds of generative AI applications have you seen in fintech?
Yeah, a lot. I would say there are multiple use cases that I have come across. So when it comes to generative AI, when you're generating some content, probably that would have limited applications. But when it comes to LLMs itself, when you are using LLMs to drive some of your projects, then there are countless applications. For example, let's say my user is a company, it's not a person. uh, I before when the company reaches out to me for any kind of support, when somebody from the company reaches out, I need to know everything about that company. So, for example, say how important that customer is for me. That works for personal or human beings as a customer as well. And for that, I need to know what is going on with that company in the market at this point of time. So, let's say there is there is a kind of a news going on around for that company where a fraud has occurred, or probably they have filed for bankruptcy, let's say, and there are a lot of customers reaching out to them with their complaints, and that company is your customer, so they have reached out to you, right? So they will keep on doing that, because right now recently there has been a news article, or there have been some financial challenges, right? So in order to understand that, you need to constantly keep a watch on the market, what that company is doing at this point of time, which direction it is going. And you cannot be like, okay, there are 50 queries that have come in from this company, and now I want to go back and see what is happening. So you constantly need to be identifying the leading indicators, and that's when this is just one of the application of for usage of LLMs, right? Of course, all the support and chatbots and everything are built on LLMs, so that obviously is one of the applications. And in fintech, generally, there are a lot of fraud activities that keep on happening, and this is where money is involved. So any kind of product in fintech where money is involved, it automatically becomes critical. So it is very important to keep a check on what kind of fraud people are doing. And again, this is where your LLMs would help in terms of identifying those different types of activities ongoing. You bring in that data, you train your models on top of it, and then you start looking at how do we mitigate these types of frauds. So very simple, smaller examples, but yes, there are countless such examples that exist.